Well, hello and welcome everyone. This is Laura Brandenburg with Bridging the Gap, and I also have one of our instructors with us today, Doug Goldberg. Thanks for joining us, Doug.
Very welcome.
Yeah, welcome, welcome. So I'm so excited to do this. We have never done a webinar quite like this before, and gratefully, I'm grateful he volunteered to join me on it. It's going to actually help us help a lot more people. We had over 300 people registered for the webinar, and so far it looks like 56 have joined us, and that number is climbing. So lots of people here, lots of questions. I'm just going to do a quick intro about us and Bridging the Gap, and then we will kind of talk about how the format today will work, and then we'll jump right into the coaching. So let's see. For those of you who haven't heard my story before, I got my start in tech as a quality assurance engineer, and that really led me into business analysis. And so for a long time I thought that, you know, my career happened, my business analysis career happened because I was in the right place at the right time. Like literally I was walking away to my desk from a meeting and a senior business analyst stopped me in the hallway and said, "Hey Laura, there's a position opening on our team. I think you should apply for it." And I was like, "Oh, you know, it's super busy time in QA." And she's like, "You know, it's probably a better opportunity for you and more money as well. So maybe you should really be able to, you know, look into it." And I'm always grateful that she kind of pushed me, gave me that extra little push. But when I started Bridging the Gap, like fast forward 10 to 12 years from there, and I had done consulting and managing of a business analyst team and contracting and worked in a couple different organizations as a business analyst. And then I started Bridging the Gap and started blogging about business analysis, and people were asking me, "Laura, how do I get started in a business analyst career? How do I become a business analyst?" And like my first instinct was to tell people like, "Well, just walk around your organization and wait for somebody to stop you in the hallway." And like that I realized that that wasn't really the answer, and it wasn't really the answer. It wasn't really the reason that I had gotten hired into that role either. Once I've done a lot of soul searching, I realized I was doing a lot of business analysis as a quality assurance engineer. And that shift of awareness has really driven a lot of the programs and what we do at Bridging the Gap. And also seeing this work not just for myself and for a lot of other people that I've interviewed about how they get started, but a lot of our participants as well. Kind of once you start doing some business analysis, even if it's a little slice of business analysis, more opportunities open up to you, and that's typically how we see people, quote unquote, fall into a business analyst role. So Bridging the Gap, from that time, it's been 9 years since I wrote the first blog post on Bridging the Gap, a little over 9 years now, and in that time we've evolved to be a leading provider of virtual training for business analysts. So all of our courses are endorsed by IIBA and PMI. We have template toolkits. We've also published How to Start a Business Analyst Career, which has been an Amazon best-selling book. So that's just a little bit about us and why we're here. I'm super glad Doug is with us today. He also has a wide variety of experience as a business analyst and has done a lot of work. We've worked together almost this entire time in various capacities, some more heavily than others. He's one of the instructors for our courses, does a lot of reviews and email questions, and also does a lot of live sessions with me when we run interactive sessions, and is a lead of a really significant BA team and a consulting practice. So he brings a lot of great experience as well. So our goal today is to answer questions and to do some live coaching. So I don't really have like much more content to present other than just this initial introduction. So I want to give you some tidbits though, or some advice about like what questions do you want to ask? Because sometimes it's just a challenge to know like what questions should I ask and how to make the most out of you know, the minutes or the time that you get. So be thinking about any project or challenges in your business analysis work, whether you are formally a business analyst or not. Those are the kinds of questions that we can really help with. Any challenges getting started in a business analyst role and kind of what's your best path into business analysis, or any career goals you have maybe before now and year end, or looking ahead into 2018 and you're looking for some guidance on what actions to take. Those would be good ideas of questions. Because we are do have so many people on the call. We want to help as many people as possible. We're going to try to limit each answer to 3 to 5 minutes. And so be thinking about that. How can you state your question as concisely as possible? Because the more time that you kind of give use to ask the question, the less time we'll have to answer it. So we can always ask you follow-up questions, and that's really the advantage of being able to do a live coaching call like this. Is my preference is going to be to take people off mute. Everyone by default is on mute, but take people off mute and have a quick conversation so that we can really drill into the challenge and the question you have more quickly. And the way that you request to be taken off mute is to click that little button right there, which is where you raise your hand. And that signals to me that you'd like to ask a question. And I see at least one person. Oh, you had lowered your hand, but feel free to raise it back again. And that's, yep, at least a couple people have raised their hand already. And so we'll go to those questions first. And since Doug was able to join, if you are more comfortable typing in, I know some people like to do that, feel free to put a question into that question box as well that's down on the bottom. That, though, is most likely Doug will be answering those through chat. So you'll receive a message back from him. And then if there's something that he thinks it would be best for us to talk through, we might talk through that as well, kind of time permitting. Let me just check my notes and make sure I didn't have anything else to say about questions before we jump right in. Oh yeah, so some questions that I don't think we are the best people to ask about. One is like technical tools. I have my favorite go-to tools, but I don't always keep up to date on all the BA tools that are out there. I focus more on the core techniques and skills. So I'm really just honestly not the best person to ask about that. And then also job search. So that is an area where I've had a lot of experience. We've done some training on before. I have my core concepts that I'll dial you back to with job search, and really it comes down to figuring out your transferable skills, really positioning your skills in a business analyst way, and going beyond just applying to jobs on job boards and making sure you're leveraging your professional network. And so I'll come back to those core concepts. So probably not the best use of our time here today as well. Let's see, and I think that's all I really wanted to make sure. Oh, one last thing. So at the end of today's call, about 10 minutes to the top of the hour, I'm going to make sure, I want to share a little bit of information about the Business Analyst Blueprint. This is our flagship program, and we're getting ready to offer our 2018 session, which will start towards the end of January. We've been getting a lot of questions about it, and we don't even really have registration open yet, and I'm still finalizing exactly how that program is going to be shaped. So I would love to just share a few details with you about it and get some feedback about what you think about the program, things you'd like to see in it, not see in it, and if this is something that you're interested in, definitely kind of to help shape what we finally do when we offer that program and get registration live. So if you'd like to hear more about that, just let us know in the chat box, and I'll make sure towards the end of the hour to give a few minutes to that, but it's not the focus of what we're talking about today. Okay, so I am going to go ahead then. Doug, anything I missed before we open up questions?
I'm gonna give you. Can you hear me?
I can. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna give you the first question after you finish a couple of verbal ones.
Mm-hmm.
The one by Achin at the top of the question list, and I'm continuing to answer the ones that are already
flying in. I see that. You're keeping Doug busy, so be patient with him. Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't see all of that, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, there's lots of questions there. Okay, so let me take Ross. Oh. It's not letting me unmute Ross. Let's see. Oh, there we go.
Oh, I'm unmuted.
You are.
Right on. Thanks, Laura.
Thank you.
Awesome. I did ask Doug a question regarding, I live in Ottawa, Canada. Here we have a strong presence with the federal government, and from when I look, and the way that I got sort of onto these BA or business analysis career was looking at some of the job opportunities, And the more that I delved into it, and the more research I did, this is a fantastic BA city. There's tons of opportunity with the best employer in town, the federal government. So I'm a real estate agent. I do have some technical background from a long, long time ago, like over 15 years ago. However, I've always been proficient with software, computers, information technology. But, transitioning into this career, I just don't know the lingo, and I've been reading through your website extensively, which is fantastic. I'm considering doing a master's certificate in business analysis here locally. And I asked Doug sort of what personality traits or what skills would make a good BA. I'm not sure if you can comment on any of that, but yeah.
Sure, yeah. And you mentioned that your area has one large employer, and so there are some general skills that for sure make a good BA. And actually, I'll be sharing some of those with the blueprint piece, because those are the core skills that I feel like are really important for business analysts that I cover in that program. But what you really want to do too is, if your goal is to get a BA job with the federal government, it sounds like it could be, then really looking at the job postings that they post and using that as a touchstone. So is your goal to get employed with that organization, or would you consider other organizations locally?
Look, I would consider other organizations, but to be honest with you, Ottawa is not a big business town. We only have 300 or so companies that generate $1.5 million in revenue and up. So, out of a city of 1.5 million, it's not this is the best game in town. And the contracts that they reward are just fabulous. So,
Gotcha.
Well, they pay really well. From what I gather, they're, working with good people, professional environment. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say then look at those job postings as a guide. Reach out to people for introductions, or people that that are working on those projects, whether they're in a business analyst role or just any sort of project related role, to try to understand, how do you get hired into one of these positions? What are the core skills for this particular position? But to answer your question more generally, the way I think about business analysis is a combination of analysis skills and communication skills. And the core analysis skills split up typically into some sort of a business process view, a functional software requirements view, and an information or a data view. And then along all of those are the analysis techniques that you need to be familiar with to look at a project from multiple different vantage points. And then through all of those is really core written and verbal communication. So facilitating meetings, documentation reviews, and writing clear documentation, just as a starting point for the general skills of a business analyst.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I add something to that one?
Sure. We'll probably be moving on, but yeah, go ahead, Doug.
All right. I just met the president of the IIBA Ottawa chapter. Her name's Emily Tom. And for anyone who's looking to break into business analysis, I would recommend joining the IIBA chapter locally to your area. It's a great way to network with other BAs and ask them some direct questions.
Thank you so much.
That's 100%. All right. Thank you, Ross. Great question to kick us off.
Right on. Thanks for letting me speak.
Yeah. Okay. So Maya, I hope I'm saying your name right. Every time I go to click on someone, it's not. Oh, you are self-muted, Somaya. So if you are able to unmute yourself. There we go. Hello?
Yes. Hi. Do you hear me?
I do. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me a chance to talk about my questions, Laura.
Of course.
I've been a business analyst in healthcare industry since about 5 to 6 years now. So my question is, I worked on technical things like Cognos reports, and I also worked on requirements. As one of my roles in the industry was requirements analyst. That's how I got started. And then I was business analyst at a healthcare company. I continued my career I was a developer first, and then chose to be a business analyst. Right now at my work, I don't have major responsibilities. I had responsibilities for 2 projects, and one project was just testing and also the business analysis part, trying to give some deliverables to the project. The second project I have is the responsibilities I have is just taking the meeting minutes, and I'm not sure if that's the direction I would like to go, because it's just the operations and maintenance project. It's not a system development or enhancement. So there's nothing too much to the technicalities or the testing part or the requirements analysis part. I'm stuck at the crossroads and trying to figure out, is my next step should be going to senior business analyst, or should I take CBAP? Would I be eligible for taking CBAP? And what should be my next step? Is it PMP? Like the next step is to become a project manager? Like, can I remain as business analyst forever because I don't like
because you don't like project management?
Yeah, I don't like project management.
Yes, you can. You totally can. The path is a little less clearly defined typically than a promotion to a project manager role. But there are definitely people who are like lifelong business analysts. You know, Doug and I being 2 of them. Though of course I've taken the path more on the training business analyst. But there are several. There's definitely paths into a more senior business analyst role from where you are. And I would agree with you. Like, I feel like taking notes. Like, if there's probably a lot of people on this call who maybe have never taken notes in a meeting and have never done any business analysis. I always recommend that's like a great first activity to do, just to get your feet wet and to improve your listening skills. But it sounds like, Samaya, you have a lot of experience, so that is kind of a step back for you to be in a role that's more maintenance driven and where you're kind of confined more to taking notes. So if you could maybe broaden that role and create maybe a better process around it, or expand it in some way, maybe there's some opportunity there. But otherwise, maybe you're looking at how could you shadow or get a junior BA to start shadowing you and filling in on some of that, so you could work on some more of the bigger projects in your organization. Okay, sounds good. Yeah. So you recommend that I go for the senior business analyst positions. If not this organization, maybe I can look for. Yeah, I would. I mean, are you finding those in your local area? Not really. Right now, I'm working for federal government projects. My employer is in Alexandria, Virginia. The company name is Bylight Professional IT Services Incorporated. And the clients are in Denver, Colorado. So I'm working for Veterans Health Administration Center, but my company has subsidized those projects. So I'm working for the company that's located in Alexandria, Virginia. Yeah, and I would think there's got to be other organizations that do have more senior business analyst roles. That's a pretty well-populated area. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and sometimes as you get into that more senior level, they don't always have the title business analyst too. So you might be looking at product owner or business architect or kind of a variety of other roles that really are still business analyst roles, not project management roles, but at a more senior level. Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much. Right. Yeah, thank you. Great question. Okay. So, Shrividi, you are up next. Hello.
Hi, Lara. Thank you. Thanks for
Shrividi or Srinivas? I apologize.
Yeah, Shri Devi.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks for the opportunity. Yeah. Actually, basically, I'm a techie girl, and I'm into the core banking for past 5 years, and now I would like to get into business analyst with my functional knowledge and both technical. So what do you suggest me? What is my career path in the business analyst with a functional banking knowledge? And what are the areas I have to focus on to become a business analyst career? And what do you suggest me? Like, what are the prospects for me, and what I have to learn to upgrade my knowledge to become a business analyst?
Yeah, great question. So I missed the first part. Did you say you're a techie, like you're a
Yeah, I
technical person?
basically, yeah, I'm an engineering person. I'm an engineering graduate, and I was having some technical knowledge too, like programming, coding, everything. I have some basic knowledge. For the initial 2 years, I was working in that, and then I moved into the banking, core banking, for 5 years. And with these together, with the technical and the banking domain knowledge, I would like to go as a business analyst career. So,
Okay.
what do you suggest me?
Yeah, so the good thing about banking is one of those domains that tends to prefer domain experience for BAs. So with your functional knowledge of some of those tool sets, it might be the next first step for you might be to focus on roles in the banking industry that are maybe less technical and more business focused than you're in now. So you're kind of taking a step more towards the business analyst role. Does that gel with opportunities you've seen in your local area?
Yeah, I'm trying out, but the thing is that like I don't have much knowledge or experience on the business analyst. I just have functional knowledge, and I have to start up my career as a business analyst with these two experiences. So how I would like to work, how you suggest me to proceed, what I have to focus on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where like learning some of the core requirements models can be a really good place to start. So learning how to write requirements or do some analysis in various analysis models. So like business process flows, use cases, wireframes, data models, that kind of thing. That's going to give you the skill set and also probably looking to put yourself in positions where you're communicating with business stakeholders. So I would guess that as a functional banking person, like you might have maybe opportunities where you could demo some of the technical work you're doing or conduct an interview of some sort so that you're practicing some of those techniques on the job and expanding that skill set. Do any of those opportunities strike a chord with you?
No, I'm just trying. Yeah.
You're just
What about
writing?
the
Okay.
yeah.
Fair enough. I threw a lot at you, so.
So, what about the BPM?
BPM, like
Yeah,
business process modeling notation.
yeah.
Yeah, that can be, yeah, that could be, so where I would suggest there is, do you see job positions in your local area, maybe in the banking industry, that require BPMN? And if so, that could be a skill set that, it's the one piece that you put in place. In my experience working with a lot of people who've gotten in, it's usually not a specific, like a skill set is that specific. It's usually that more general ability to analyze and document requirements that is the kind of the switch that needs to get into place. And then BPMN is like a very specific and special way to do this that can be relevant in some organizations, but not all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Laura.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. And so, Doug, you had said you had one we wanted to discuss from the chat
Sure.
box.
Take the one at the top by Achin.
Can you read it for me?
I am working as a test prime. How can I find my first job as a business analyst without having actual BA work experience? And this is similar to several other questions by other people, so this would cover a lot
Yeah,
of
that have come up, and similar to what we were just talking about with Trividi as well.
Yep.
So test, yeah, test. I'm assuming test prime is kind of like test analyst. Is that your assumption?
Yes.
I've not heard test prime before, but yeah.
Or
So
test
I'll share a bit more of my story specifically around this option, and then Doug, if you have any suggestions too, feel free to jump in. But so the pieces that ended up, when I looked back, and I did not realize that I was doing this at the time, right? But when I looked back as a BA with like 8 to 10 years of experience, who had transitioned there from a quality assurance engineer, which was essentially doing testing on the data of our organization. The things that I realized that I had been doing, one was process development. So that role that I was doing as testing, it was a brand new role when I got kind of thrown into it or promoted into it, but it was like no one had really done that work before. And so I was creating essentially, I was calling it a test plan, but it was essentially a business process for how do we test data in our organization. And then the other piece of that, because the data we were testing was actually externally facing publisher content, so I was involving all of these editors from different editorial teams across the organization in that test process, and which I later learned was user acceptance testing. So they were doing very end user testing and saying, well, this is wrong with the data, this is wrong with the data, this is wrong with the data. And I was then analyzing those defect reports and figuring out the root cause. So some of the competencies that I brought into that organization was just the ability to communicate with people across the organization, the ability to plan out a new process and build it from scratch. And in that organization, I had very detailed system knowledge because I was kind of testing what would be called white box or gray box testing. I was testing kind of under the hood of the system, and so I really kind of understood. I still have never really coded, but I understood how the pieces and parts of the system were put together, which was a completely proprietary system, so that knowledge took me nowhere. It was completely irrelevant in my next BA position, but was very relevant in in the first BA position I had. So those were some of the things that I was able to transfer over. And so that's something to be thinking about, is how can you be more proactive in your testing process? How can you, be out communicating, maybe get more involved in user acceptance testing and do some of those things so you're building that experience. And it's going to help you qualify for a business analyst role. Other thoughts on that, Doug, or threads that you want to pull out based on the other questions you're seeing come through in the chat?
No, I think you covered that pretty well. There's a lot of questions about tools with regard to getting started, what to learn as a BA, and I think similar to what Laura was saying, focus on what you're going to need for the role that you're working towards, and focus on the aspects of the tools that'll pay the greatest dividend for the broadest aspect of BA roles that you seek. And so what I would say is, don't focus on specific tools, don't focus on specific languages or methods as an initial BA. Focus on learning the core principles and disciplines of the profession, and focus on Office Suite productivity tools, and maybe a modeling tool like Lucidchart or Glyphy or Visio. That should be all you need to get started.
Yeah. Yeah, the only I totally agree 100%. The caveat I might add to something like that is, like, we had Cognos come up from one of the questions, and so if you have prior experience in it, like Cognos, for anyone who doesn't know, is a business intelligence tool. I'm not familiar with it personally, but I know of it. But so if you have prior experience in a tool like that is used in a lot of organizations locally. Some examples I've given before too are like SAP or Salesforce.com or Microsoft SharePoint. So if you have some prior experience in a tool like that, that could be a specialty that you choose to hone in on, and it could actually get you into like a functional analyst slash business analyst role as a starting point, because a lot of times people hire for those roles looking for a specialty, and you wouldn't want to ignore like your core BA skills, but you could use that as a jumping off point. By no means would you want to specialize in all of those tools, but if there's one that you think could really be a good fit for your background, it can be a good way to just get a foot in the door too.
That's a really good point, and that's kind of where you teach in the courses that you do about the transferable skills from previous roles. That's where you would want to take those things forward and use them as a tool to break into the BA environment.
Perfect. All right. Looks like we have 3 more hands up. So if you are thinking about asking a question via audio, we will have probably time for, I would say, maybe 5 or 6 more. So go ahead and get your hands up if you'd like to. And I'm going to take Tamara off mute now, and Vincent, you'll be next. Tamara.
Hi. Thank you very much for taking my question and for your time.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
I have seen in the chat box that Doug has been advising part of the skills is communication. I'm currently in a alleged business analyst role where I'm very comfortable with reporting, solution suggestions. The one problem I do have is that currently the solutions I do suggest, there's sort of an unwritten that it needs to be followed because that's my job and that's who I am. But my concern is that one day people won't have to listen to me, no matter how compelling the data might be. And I'm quite nervous about that communication part where I need to convince people. Is there any suggestions you have to kind of maybe build confidence in communicating better, or is the data just the data and that's it? It's quite Stalin-like.
So why are you nervous that someday people won't have to listen to you? Like, what do you think the negative outcome of that is?
So, well, besides the personal reasons, which would be negative for me, I mean, you aren't doing your job if people aren't listening and following the solutions which save the business money. The reason why I'm afraid that might happen is we're a very small startup and we're growing at a rapid pace, and there are many changing personalities that don't really fit the culture of where we all kind of worked in harmony. So there is currently an issue that's starting to rear its head, where my style of communication, which is a little bit militant and maybe to the point and not soft enough, kind of clashes with someone else's. So I'm just afraid that clash is going to cause, which it seems that it has, a bit of a barrier. So anything that I do suggest, even if it is backed up with data, it's just more of a struggle than it needs to be to get my solutions across. I'm sorry.
So a pure BA approach to that, which is a little different than when you are a business intelligence analyst who is sharing what the data says. Like, a BA always listens first and asks questions first and goes through an analysis process to create buy-in. So it starts with asking the business stakeholders, what do you want? What is the problem that we're trying to solve here? And then collaboratively coming up with solutions involving technology stakeholders and business stakeholders together, which is different than like, here's what the data is telling me, let's go do it, right? So I think that as you move up in the organization, that kind of collaborative approach is going to serve you well too. Like, what are the problems we have in the organization? And then here's what I see that the data is telling me about X. So whatever that problem is that somebody has said that they want solved, using the data as kind of a tool to help come up with solutions, but not necessarily have to be your solution because you are kind of the owner of the data. How does that land with you?
That makes a lot of sense, and I get you. Once you get buy-in and collaboration at the start, before you even look at the data, then it surely makes, first of all, people agree that there is a problem or could be a problem, and then secondly, it makes them quite open to your solutions. Yeah. I think it's very difficult sometimes when you're in a small business to kind of see, I don't know, behind the blinders or behind the blinkers. So thank you for that. You're 100% right, and I think I'm going to try that tomorrow. Why
awesome. Not? Good luck with that. Shoot me an email. Let me know how it goes, Tamara. I'd love to hear from you.
I definitely will. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
All right. Vincent, having trouble. You're self-muted, Vincent.
How about now?
You're good. Hello.
Hey.
Good to hear your voice again.
Yeah, no, it's great to talk to you guys again. Yeah, I'd just like to say that, yeah, your blueprint training is worth, yeah, I'm glad you guys are doing that again, because those are the core skills that we need as a business analyst.
I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you. Yeah. Did you have a question for us today?
Yeah, actually I do. So I recently had an interview a couple weeks ago. Unfortunately, I didn't get the job. So I'm trying to see, and what they told me, well, so it was, so I was never a business analyst by job title and trying to get into a different industry. So they told me, again, I keep getting the domain knowledge challenge. Like, they only picked the other person because they had the utility background, which I didn't. So I'm just trying to see what other suggestions you guys might have for that. Because I have all the transferable skills. I've written requirements, I've written test procedures, I train people how to use the system, I've done documentation. I just don't have the domain knowledge. But see, think about it, when I had aerospace, I never did that before either. So I'm just like, so I don't get it. So I was able to do that though. So,
yeah, and you're able to learn it. I know. This is one of those things, like if I could flip the switch and change something about our profession, like this is the piece I would change, right? It's like, just trust people that they can learn, especially if they're good BAs. Yeah, so is utility, is the utility domain like prevalent in your area, or is it a different domain like every job that you look at?
It's pretty prevalent. It's one of the big companies down there. It's Edison, for Southern California Edison, but it's a consulting firm for them.
Mm-hmm. So do you feel like, so is there one domain that comes up, like if I had that specialty, I would definitely be able to land a job, or is it always like a different one?
I think it's gonna vary for me, because for example, I mean, the good thing about BH, you could go to any industry, right? Finance, healthcare, you're gonna run the same challenges, like domain knowledge. Okay, what they always ask you, what kind of experience you have. Before they always ask you that, and then I can't argue. I don't have it, so I'm just trying to see. That's why I'm trying to leverage my BA skills. I have plenty of BA skills. Collaborate with multiple stakeholders, written requirements. I mean, the documentation. So I have the basic fundamental skills. I worked on 2 large projects, and like I said, so I'm just trying to see what else can I do other than. I mean, I only got this interview because I knew the CEO of this consulting firm.
Gotcha.
So that networking does help, but to get to the interview, you still gotta get over that hurdle. I'm just trying to see what I need to do so I can better prepare myself for the next interview. I'm getting through the BA title, the domain, the nomenclature, like the wording, like, so so I'm just trying to see what you guys might suggest.
Yeah, and it's really tough because somebody who is going to have that natural preference for the domain knowledge, like, I don't know that there's anything you can do to change their mind about that, right? Like, so, like, is there something that you could have said in that interview that would have changed their mind? Like, it might not have been. It might, you know, there just might not be when the domain experience is perceived as that critical by a hiring manager. I don't know that there's anything that an interviewee can do to change their mind. The only thing I can suggest in that scenario is, like, it looks like you're getting into the right pieces, right? You're getting around that initial barrier. Have stories about maybe like the most difficult thing that you learned in aerospace and how complex it was and how quickly you learned that, just to give people that comfort of learning on the job and be able to share some of those examples. And then focus on the opportunities where that, you know, and I know they seem like a needle in a haystack, but the opportunities where the domain experience is not as critical.
Okay.
Yeah, I know that's a tough answer. I feel it's not. It's like that's why I would love to flip this switch in our profession, because the alternative is that you go out and you pick an industry, and then you become a specialist in that industry. So whatever it means to be a specialist in the utility industry, right? And whether that's a training program or a certification or going back to college, and you learn everything that there is to know about that, and then you really focus in on a job in a specific industry with that domain knowledge behind you. But that's a pretty tough path too. So you could also then look at, you know, which industry, if you have an industry that you are interested in, you know, interview people in that industry or in that company. Like, how do people get started? What's the entry-level roles in those organizations? How do you get that domain knowledge behind you? Because the path's going to be different in different industries. So there's like nothing like globally I can tell you about that besides like figuring out one industry at a time.
Okay.
Yeah, Doug, anything you want to share on that one?
The only thing I could really add to your excellent answer is maybe the question, do you have domain knowledge, is a bit broad, and maybe if you kind of decompose it into smaller pieces, it might provide you the ability to say, I know this, but I don't know that, or I know that, but I don't know this. And it also kind of opens the door for you to say, well, when I went to aerospace in my last time, this is, I didn't have the domain knowledge. This is what I did to learn my new environment, and this is how long it took me to get up to speed. And that's how I operate, and I feel that would, you know, work well in your environment too, if, you know, you want to give me the opportunity. So any way that you can insert your method and style of learning in a situation like that might be the one item that, you know, flips the decision on the hiring manager. But I think Laura's right. It's hard to change their mind on that one.
Yeah, so let me clarify. So they didn't ask me any domain knowledge questions at the interview, but they just told me they picked the other guy because he had industry experience. That's yeah. So not like they know I don't have domain knowledge, so they didn't ask me.
I don't think anything's going to change their mind because they already made up their mind without even approaching you on it.
Yeah, then why interview? That's wasting my time then, right?
Well, so you decide that you want to prep for an interview.
Yeah, I guess
you were
it's
breaking
good.
up there a bit.
All right, yeah. I guess it's just good practice, right? So.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of that. Like you never quite know what you're in for with an interview, and it's tough. It's tough. So this is why communities like this are so good to help kind of, just stay in touch. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, thanks.
All right, thank you, Vincent. We're sending you good vibes for the next one. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go. We have probably time for two more. So Srini Vasulu will be next, and then Denise. And then I'll talk a little bit about the blueprint. Oh, Srini Vasulu, it looks like you're muted on your end. Yeah, I see you raising your hand. There you go. Hello.
Hi. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can. And I
Hi.
apologize if I mispronounced your name.
That's not a problem. You spelled it right. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. My situation is I worked as a developer and application support analyst. So my question is, I'm confused whether the work I did can be termed as a business analyst or a technical business analyst. How do I go from there? In the last role, I did both development support and a lot of data mappings analysis for the business on daily basis for new projects and for regular maintenance of the applications and components. So I don't know whether it can be termed as business analysis or technical business analysis.
Yeah. It
Because
definitely can. Is there a specific context you're concerned about it counting for?
I'm applying for business analyst roles, and I can see some technical business analyst roles in my industry, that is investment banking, front office space. But whenever they see a lot of technical things on my CV, they are not even considering my CV for the business analyst roles. So should I completely revamp my CV saying that I'm a business analyst, or how do I go about this?
Yeah, you definitely want to, if you're applying for roles that are not as technically focused, you definitely want to focus on the responsibilities you've had that are more analyst focused and less technical. Because they will, a recruiter typically is going to go and look at the most recent experience you have, your most recent role, and look at that title and look at the responsibilities. And if it's just kind of full of technical jargon, like you would typically do for a technical role, they're going to be like, oh, this person's a developer, and pass on it. That's just like most of the time and kind of very general. There's always exceptions to that. So you do want to focus on the kinds of responsibilities you're seeing in the role you're applying for. And that's not to misrepresent what you do, but just to focus on the pieces that are most applicable. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. And what is the career progression for a business analyst? Because I saw on a couple of other websites saying that there are roles like enterprise business architect or business architect. Are these roles really possible for a business analyst when we get experience?
Yeah, I think definitely with more of a technical background, a lot of those enterprise business architect or those roles tend to be more technical architect roles. So having a technical background with more business analyst experience, you can start to build a career path into one of those roles, for sure.
Okay. So my first, should I apply for a business analyst role and then from there take it forward, because I have around 15 years of IT experience and 8 years in investment banking IT.
Where do you ultimately want to be?
I like to be like a technical business architect kind of roles.
Yeah, so I would say then focus on growing within the technical space. And part of that will be adding more business focused skills, because as you get up into those higher levels of a technical role, you are going to be communicating with stakeholders and understanding bigger picture business problems and facilitating meetings and presenting in meetings. So you will need to update, not just the technical skills are important in those roles, but the business analysis competencies as well. But look for the roles that take you a step towards that, which could be in the technical space or could be more of a business analyst space. You really could go either way.
Okay.
Yeah, great questions.
Yeah,
Thank you. Okay. All right, and last last but certainly not least, and actually we have just a few hands, so I will stay if people do want to stay. I'll stay on. I'm going to talk about the blueprint as promised before we close, but I'll stay on after and take at least a couple more questions until my girls get home here. But Denise, let me...
Hi, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you for doing this today. It's greatly appreciated.
You're welcome.
My question, well, I guess I have to explain. I'm a senior right now, and I'm expected to attain my bachelor's degree in business IT management in March. Through my course of study, I've become Project Plus certified, and I lack experience, and I haven't been able to get any experience. I stay in a rural area, and the next city over, all of their resources where I could possibly have a chance at getting experience is pretty much tailored to the ECU was there, so it's tailored for those students. And I have IT background from when I served in the military, but mainly my background is pretty much composed of customer service, and I know that between that and my academic studies, I know I'm qualified to be a BA. I mean, because we actually have to study certain, like I just got done with the class where we studied like the business processes and the abstract models and everything like that, that relates to business analysis. I wanted to specialize in data. I'm actually planning on pursuing another degree next year in data analytics. But pretty much I've actually done a lot of resume rewriting over the past couple of weeks. And I received the email because, you know, they offered to do one of those things for free, and it came back that they say that my resume is tailored to sales, and it's only like, I actually had to pull it up so I could tell you, it's only like 14% information technology and like 24% sales. So my resume is tailored to retail and sales, which I hate sales. So my question basically is, how would I market myself to be able to attract to be able to attract the people that's recruiting for BA roles, or the actual BA jobs, versus, you know, the other stuff that I'm getting?
Yeah. I think there's two things. One is you want to highlight your degree and the formal training that you have in business analysis. And then the second thing is you want to go through, you mentioned a lot of different roles that you had before you started your degree. So it's not like you're entering as, you know, you went to high school and then to college and then are entering with really no professional experience in the job market. You have some of that professional experience. So you want to go back through that and pull out as much as you can that can emphasize the business analysis experience. And so really the strategy, this is just a core strategy that I teach, is just like, look at the job posting you're applying for and look at your resume, and do you see the connections between the words, right? So if are there words in the job posting that are also in your resume? And if not, where could you honestly add them, or maybe tweak how you talk about your experience, or, oh wait, I did do that as a customer service rep and I don't have it on my resume. And so you're going through that process, but that's where like the more focused kind of roles that you have to apply for, definitely be focusing on those and doing that side-by-side comparison and pulling out, using that as a way to pull out those BA experiences.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I looked at your I'm always back and forth between my kids and trying to get my schoolwork done. When I have time, I actually do go on your website and I check out a few of those articles that you have on there, because that's what I've called myself doing. Apparently, it's not working. So that's pretty much.
Dig a little deeper, yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, I've pretty much changed up, you know, some of the words to try to get it more towards the BA side versus people think I'm trying to find another retail job. Okay, so I mean, I'll just keep, I guess, brushing up on it or whatever.
Yeah, and it might be a matter of titles too. Yeah, and this is where, like, kind of outside of, I think, what we probably could handle in a live call like this in such a short time, but it might be worth, you know, having somebody look at your resume as a business analyst and do a resume review on that, and get that outside perspective from not just a recruiter, because recruiters tend to have just a really kind of a narrow perspective, but somebody in the business analyst space.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you.
All right. Yeah, thank you, Denise. All right, so I was going to just share briefly about the blueprint, and then I will take a couple more questions. And I didn't clear that with Doug, so I have no idea if he'll be able to stay on. But either way, Doug, it's fine. Doug has a day job too. Well, we both have day jobs, but this is my primary day job and his secondary one. So let's see. So the blueprint, you know, one of the themes that has come up that again and again is about what are the core skills to be a business analyst and what is it important to focus on. So this is what I consider the blueprint of business analyst skills and core business analyst skills. So not the fringe stuff like the industry and the tech stuff, but like the core generalist business analyst skills that Vince was talking about when he had his question. And I think it's useful to break them up into analysis techniques and communication techniques. Analysis techniques is what we typically see come up in a job posting, right? The ability to create specific kinds of models and requirements visuals and requirements documents. Communication, we don't see always such as much. It's specifically in a job posting, but they are what enable us to get the information to put in those models and to make sure that those models truly represent business needs and business desires and are implementable in the end. And then further, separating them between business level, software level, and information level. So business level is that process. So how does a business stakeholder complete work? Some of that might touch a technology system, but not always all of it, and really getting that business focused view first, then bringing it into the software level or functional requirements level. That's where we teach use cases and wireframes. Other places you'll see like a software requirements specification or a functional requirements document that would have this kind of information. One of the things we're going to be adding to this software level is user stories. That's a component that is really relevant in an agile environment. And then the information level, so this is that data modeling that Srini brought up for us, like the data mapping, data dictionaries, entity relationship diagrams. This part can feel a little scary if you're more of a business-focused role, but really it's about how does our organization manage information? What kinds of information do we capture when we set up a new customer or process an order, and making sure that we can really understand that data in an intelligent way. This isn't the kind of business intelligence analysis that Tamara spoke to. This is more modeling how we actually store the information, which can allow us to do that sort of data analysis and data-driven decision-making that she was talking about. So that is what we cover in the blueprint, and I would just love to hear any feedback you have about that. If this is the kind of, you know, are there pieces here that you feel like are missing or that you would be really interested in? And feel free to get that into the comments box around that. And the other piece I just wanted to talk about was the actual program itself. So the first time we delivered it over 4 months. We might shorten that a little bit this time or lengthen that. 4 months was a long time, but it also went really quickly once we got into it. So, you know, kind of thoughts on, you know, would you like a really intensive program or maybe a kind of an easier paced, slower program, but then it does, you know, start to we would be finishing more in the summer instead of the spring. There's videos, audios, we provide a lot of course materials, and then we meet for webinar sessions where we, like this one, except much smaller group typically, where we get to have coaching sessions, answer the questions you have about specific techniques. And then one of the benefits of all of our programs is instructor support. We have Doug, who you've met today. We also have Paula and Disha, who will review the work that you send in via email, answer questions via email, and review your work as well. And so just looking for like any questions, any thoughts on this. We did run it this year, but I am looking at, you know, improving it this year, and I've interviewed a lot of the participants in the last year's program. But if you had any thoughts on, you know, how this landed with you, I'd love to hear it. Not seeing anything come in the chat box. Denise, someone who lacks experience, the doing is what's key to me. That's really, I'm glad you brought that up, Denise. So we, like, that is a core piece of all of our programs, is that you actually go and do the work. So when I say business process model, like, we help you create that process model, and then you submit that and you get some feedback on that as an instructor, or from your instructor. So you're actually out there doing it, and usually if you're in any sort of professional setting, you don't have to be a BA, but because we can always find a way to like apply it in your work experience, but ideally in your real work setting as well. Okay. When are we looking at running this? Angela, it's going to start at the end of January. And we are also doing, so we started the wait list just last week, and we had a really, we had a group of people who have just recently started new BA positions and really needed something sooner rather than later. And so we've actually, I'm opening a bit of an early access model, which the focus on that will be just a little bit of coaching between now and when we get started. And so, and that's not going to cost any extra. It's just kind of an advanced bonus for getting started early. Okay. And a couple questions about the cost. That's always a big one. So I'm glad that came up. So I've been actually going back and forth on a couple different models with pricing. So all of these individual components currently in the blueprint, let me go back to that slide, are $997 for each course that we offer is each of these 3 modules. So one, you know, 1,000 would obviously be too little because we're doing all 3 of them in the course. 10,000 would probably be way too much. So I think that for the core offer of what we just talked about, with probably like about 6 webinar sessions in all 3 modules, we would be looking at 1,997. Though we have been thought about a model too that has more mentoring, and that is something that we might do at more like the $4,000 or $5,000 price point, where you have a really intense, I shouldn't say intense, that makes it sound strong, but like where you have a deep experience perhaps with one of our instructors, where you're getting more iterative reviews, more one-on-one attention, and a bigger, kind of a bigger experience or a deeper experience one-on-one. So I'd be interested in feedback about pricing and what that means to you. I know that can be a challenging one, or if there's any like specific payment plans that would make that, facilitate that for you. The 36 credits, thank you, Alpha, for that. The 36 credits does count for PMP PDUs or the CBAP PDs or any of the IIBA certifications. So those are valid for both professional certifications. And it is not specifically a CBAP prep course, though you would leave with the 36 credits that you need to, how do you say it, to apply for the CBAP. So, but it's not like a course that would apply or prepare you to take the CBAP exam specifically. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Ideas? Tameka asked how many years experience is it to sit for the CBAP. I think that's about 5 years for the CBAP. And the CBA, the level 2 certification is about 2.5. And the interesting thing about that is it does not have to be with the business analyst job title. So that can be it's the business analysis responsibilities. not the job title. So all the things that we've talked about, if you've done these under a different role, that can count as part of your CBAP. When I applied for my CBAP, I counted some of my testing experience because it was the piece doing user acceptance testing and facilitating and creating a business process. And it is all online. Great question. All online. We do our course sessions using some of the same GoToWebinar technology, and all of the video, PDF, templates, all of that is all available to you virtually and online. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take a couple more questions.
Laura, I'm going to sign off, okay?
Okay, thank you so much, Doug.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. So, and if you're listening into the replay or just have some feedback you'd like to get to me later, I'd be happy to receive emails with ideas around that as well. Okay, Marnie, I'm going to take you off mute for your question. Marnie?
Yeah, hi. Thanks so much for taking the question.
Yeah.
So I've been learning, through reading your books and learning through the emails that I've been getting from you, and I have quite extensive experience in technical publishing within nonprofit. And so I'm kind of a specialist that I've just kind of utilized my experience in one industry. But so I've got a lot of operational experience of like fulfillment and production and billing and, accounting systems and all the software that integrates all of these things. So I'm looking to work on the business analyst part of it to get a title that's more accurate than what I currently have. So my question is, in terms of coursework and certification, that if I'm trying to get certified and if that's a priority, I'm wondering, would you encourage people to prioritize that or to take general BA courses to familiarize with the business process flow? And I mean, in other words, do you know a lot of people that went right into just trying to get certified or getting more of a general I've certainly been applying these things for a long time, but having the vocabulary to understand, the data mapping and the entity relationship diagram and all the, the terminology that you use and that's used.
Yeah, that's a great question. And they kind of go together because you can prepare. It's actually really hard to prepare for the CBAP exam without having done business analysis. And technically you can't even apply, right? So you have to have 5 years of experience to apply. And so it's actually challenging
I've been doing many years. No, I've been doing
you've been doing it, but you have to be able to talk about it in the context of the BA-BOC, right? So so that's it's the first step. And I remember going through that application step, and there was parts of my experience that I relearned, oh, right, I was kind of doing this. I didn't realize I was doing this, but I was. So there's an awareness that goes into the application process that can be really frustrating. When you hear people talk about it, oh my gosh, this application is, it's not a simple application. It's pretty intensive. Right. So there is that awareness that just comes from that. And if that feels like, oh, it would be really challenging to do that, that's where the training can help kind of be that prep for it, right? So doing some sort of a foundational business analyst training, whether it's ours or someone else's, just to kind of get that, oh, this is what a business analyst does, and this is how it all fits together. It's also going to help put the content in the BABOC, which is it's not all put in context in an easy to understand way all the time. So it's going to help put that into context too. But if you feel like you've already got that, then you could jump right into more of a CBAP prep / CBAP certification process.
Right. Okay. No, thank you. I think learning what to call what I've already been doing is the next first step.
Yeah. That's something that happens a lot. We have people who join a program like this and other programs, and it's they know they've been doing it, but they aren't aware of the depth to which they've been doing it. And so that little bit of training mixed with your past experience just pulls everything together.
Okay, great. Thanks so much for taking the question.
Yeah, thank you for your question. Okay. Moji, and then Nutu Thako, I apologize, will be next. Okay, Moji, you are muted on your end. we will raise your hand if you get that part sorted out, and we'll come back to you. So, Natuth, I apologize. Struggling with your name.
Ndutugo.
Oh, hello. Welcome.
Hi, you can hear me?
I can, yes.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for this and extending for the extra questions.
Yeah.
I've been in banking for 13 years, basically since I started working, and I've been wanting to transition into the BA role for the last like 5 years, and I've struggled, you know. So what I want to know is, what are the typical entry-level roles to eventually, you know, move up to being a business analyst? You mentioned that how you started as a quality assurance engineer. Is that one of the roles, the entry-level roles, which will lead you, give you a better chance to be a business analyst?
Yeah, quality assurance is definitely one. I mean, what is your role in banking?
I'm a business business relationship manager, which means I manage a portfolio of business clients. Yeah, and cater to their needs, their credit needs, their service needs, basically everything from A to Z that involves their banking needs.
Okay. Yeah, I think that, I mean, so you've got the communication part and the business focus part down.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think, you know, the piece to look at, is there a process or an improvement or a technology that you could represent on behalf of business relationship managers? So how can you essentially get involved in project work in your organization would be the next role that I would look at for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Does that bring up any ideas?
I think I've seen, they're rare, but I've seen them. I've seen them come up.
Rare is okay. You only need one.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll look into that. I'll look into that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you. Then.
And I just realized, so before I totally forgot to share the link to the waiting list in the chat box, because I said, oh, let us know if you're interested. And the way to let us know if you're interested is to go ahead and sign up for the waiting list if you want to hear more about the early access I talked about with the blueprint, and just kind of be on the first to know list about it. I totally forgot to share that link earlier. So it will be also in the replay as well. And I think I saw a question about, and I don't know if it was for this call or the calls that are part of the blueprint, you know, the replays are always available, and the replay of this will be available as well. And for our recorded sessions, we have full text transcripts available as well. Okay. So, and I saw Moji get her hand back up. So, Moji? Oh, you're self-muted again. Okay. Come back to you. So, Richard. Richard, are you there? Hello?
Hello?
Hi.
Hi. Yeah, sorry. My name's Richard. I'm calling from London.
Hi.
Hi there. Yeah, the webinar has been great, by the way. But I've just got a very quick question. Basically, I've gained my certification in BCS, in business analysis, but I've struggled to get into the industry. I've been working in sales for the past few years, and I really want to get out of that particular market, as I feel that my skills are more catered to being a business analyst. Now, it's been very, very difficult for me to get the jobs, as they say that I don't have the experience required, even though I've done this certification. Over the next few weeks, I will be shadowing one of the business analysts in my current company. But what else would you suggest?
Yeah, that is a great step. In sales, I would also look at, you know, focusing in on any roles in the sales domain. So there are BA roles that implement like sales processes and sales customer relationship management systems. So one of the tools that's really prevalent in the United States is Salesforce.com. I'm not sure if that's prevalent in the UK as well.
That's correct.
Yeah. Is that a tool you have familiarity with? Or is there a specific CRM you have familiarity with?
No, Salesforce is the tool that I use every single day.
Okay, yeah. So I would, that might be a good area for you to focus on when we talked about if you have that one technology experience that is really prevalent. So look at a path where you're part of a Salesforce.com implementation or enhancement and doing some work around that as a first step. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah. And shadow the BA. That's great advice for everyone on the call. Thank you for sharing that.
No problem. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay. Sapira. Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, did you have a question?
Hi, my name is Kosa. I'm calling from Manchester, UK. My question is, I'm absolutely new to the business analyst. I've worked in a bank, similar to a lady who was just on the call a few minutes before, and she said that she's in the sales role, sales and service, and I'm also a sales from credit cards and loans and everything, and I just wanted to go into the IT side, and I just don't know where to start from. And the gentleman before me, he said he's from London. He's actually done the BCS, and I was going to do the BCS certification, but now thinking that he's struggling, where would I stand?
And again, what did you say your current role is?
It was sales and service. I'm customer advisor.
First of all, I think you and Richard should connect. Sounds like you are in a very similar, yes.
But he's done the course, and I was actually going to do the course, so I'm probably in the middle of wanting to, but not knowing where to start.
Okay. Yeah, and it's really hard to facilitate that sort of thing, but if you both reply to any one of our emails that go back to the info at Bridging the Gap, and say, I'm willing to be connected, Marcy will make sure that you two get connected personally, so that I'm not like sharing your email address in a recorded call or anything like that. But if you are both interested in that, go ahead and do that, and we'll make sure to get that connection offline. So yeah, I would have very similar advice in terms of getting involved in any sort of project impacting your sales team. And starting to do business analysis in that way. Does an opportunity kind of pop up for you around that?
Well, somebody said that either you do business intelligence or business analysis, and I didn't understand either of them. I'm just on a sales service role, seeing customers on a daily basis. But if I could do something IT based, it would be a lot better, I guess.
Yeah, and they are, I mean, there's roles that blend those two together, but they are different paths. So the business intelligence path is going to be more data-driven, more technical, and the sales background can support you in that because you can do business intelligence as part of a sales process, like mining customer data to figure out how to improve your sales process, for example. Where the BA side is going to be more process development, more software focused, but not software in terms of like building it or building the data, but how are we going to build this software? How are we going to configure this software to serve our business? So it's you could go either direction. It's more what calls you the strongest.
Okay, thank you. So I'd rather be connected with Richard, I think, for the minute.
What's that?
I think I'd be connected to Richard and see which way I should go.
Yeah, I think the BCS side is more the business analyst side. Yeah. Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And Celia, yes, we are sending a replay of this webinar out. Okay. So I'm going to take two more. I'm going to do Anuradha first, and then Bajaran, you're next, and then I will have to sign off. It's been so much fun. I hate to do that, but I know my girls are going to be home soon. See, I'm having trouble. You are self-muted, Anuradha.
Hi, Laura.
Hi.
Hi. Thanks for this wonderful webinar, and thanks for extending this question and answer session. I really appreciate it. question and answers, and you're doing so wonderful, and it's very useful for people like us. And yeah, to my question, and I have an HR background, and I've been reading about the business analyst through your website and also through various other sources, and I want to apply in a BA role, but I was really confused whether to start as an entry-level BA and then throw off all my HR background, or just use some of my HR and project management experience and use in the BA role. So I'm a little confused on like in applying as a BA role, should I totally ignore my other experience and join as an entry level, or just use those knowledge? I mean, I'm really not sure what to do in this. I hope you can answer this question.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, because I think sometimes we do feel like we have to start from scratch, right? Like everything we've done to this day doesn't count for some reason. And that's like a fair decision to make if you really want a hard break. Like if you're like, I don't want to ever have to deal with anything HR related again, like then you might have to take that path. But you don't have to throw all of that out, for sure. There are BAs who work on human resource systems in much bigger companies and implement those systems. There are human resources aspects to business analysis when you get to managing stakeholders and all of that. So I don't think you have to decide to eliminate all of it. And the most successful paths we see with people who have professional experience is that they stand on the ground of that experience, as opposed to trying to just eliminate that experience and start from scratch. So I think I would encourage you to look at how you can bring that forward.
Okay, so I can use the HR experience along with the BA and apply. Okay, and will I be considered as entry level in those cases, or?
So have you done some actual, like you mentioned project management, so you've done some project work in human resources?
But not exactly a PM. It was not called as a PM role, but I've in the HR leadership role, I have done a little bit of a whatever the project manager role, but it's technically not called a project manager.
Yeah, and that's fine. You can call it that, right? So I would encourage you to call it that. Like I did, the way you said it was very compelling. Like I've done some project management, or I've managed projects as part of as being an HR leader. So yes, I would not say then you'd be applying for an entry-level role. You would be looking at a mid-level role, or depending on how deep that experience is, maybe even a senior-level role.
All right. Yeah, thank you so much for the.
You're welcome. Okay, last question. Bjorn, hello. Are you there? Okay. I think we might have lost them. Okay, so I think everybody put their hands down. All right. Adideo. Hello? Hello? Adideo?
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello, Laura.
Hi. Good. How are you?
All right, thanks. Yeah.
You're a little faint, so if you were closer to the microphone, I think, for a second, and that was better.
Yeah. Is it better now? Any better?
It's still quite faint.
Any better now? No.
Yeah. Let me try to turn the volume up on my side. Okay. You can try again?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Just barely. I turned my volume way up. Go ahead.
Well, sorry about that. Yeah. I was just wondering. I'm a business analyst, and I'm actually looking at doing the PMP. That's like an overkill. It's just like broadening my knowledge in the field of project management. Yeah. So, do you think I should do PMP or CBAP?
So what is your goal with the certification?
Well, it's just to, have another sort of, to add another feather to my cap, basically. And also, just to be much more marketable, basically.
Right.
One cap
And do
fits
you
all.
have a pure business analyst role, or are you like part project manager? Where do you see growing the most?
Well, I think I like business analysis, basically. I mean, well, with project management, you're gonna do a lot of things, basically.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that when that comes out. Like, oh, I really love business analysis. Yeah. Don't tell anyone though. So, yeah, yeah, you could do either. Honestly, the PMP is more recognized from a marketability standpoint, and so it's not going to hurt. But my guess is, like, if you really love business analysis, right, the CBAP preparation process is going to be more enjoyable to you and more fulfilling. And we're seeing that grow and IIBA be a little bit more recognized as a profession or as an industry standard. So the PMP probably would be a little bit of a bonus from a marketability perspective, but it might also lead you more down the path of project manager roles instead of business analyst roles, when you're looking for your next opportunity. So, yeah.
And lastly, I mean, you've just replied through the chat box that you're not going to add the lean methodology, the Lean Six Sigma. I'm going to be working. That's my next project. So I'm just looking around. I mean, what would you recommend? Will you buy? Take for instance, now if you're in my shoes, will you buy a lesson on Groupon, like like a training course on Groupon, or would you rather do it in a college?
Yeah, well, that's a hard one to answer because, I mean, obviously we provide our own virtual training, and I know there's a lot of other options out there, and you really have to look at, I suggest getting to know the provider and the training, sampling the training if you can, and really figuring out what works best for your learning style, as well as what you want to achieve. So, I mean, there's probably great training out there that you can get on Groupon and different things. If you're, it's just a matter of what's going to be the best fit for you. So, yeah.
Well, thanks.
It's always hard for me to help people decipher between all the different training options because logically I'm preferential to ours, but that's just because it's my thing.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Well, I just want to thank you all again for being here. Did I have any? We were on our questions. I totally forgot to navigate the slides. I think you could get a CDU for this if you are currently IIBA certified. This is our endorsed education provider code, and so we talked all about business analysis, and that's something that we don't track that. You track your own CDUs. There will be. I'm just glancing through. Doug had to leave, so I know we have not been paying much attention to the chat. So there will be a recording of this webinar going out. And thank you for all the kudos on the session. And we will send a waiting list link as well with the replay to the Business Analyst Blueprint waiting list. So if you are interested in joining us or learning more about what it looks like as it all shapes up, you'll get the most information if you join that. Let's see. I think that's it. Okay, I really appreciate all of your time today and how many people stuck on to the end. We still have 73 people on to the end. That's just amazing. Thank you for what you do. I really believe we build the business analysis profession one BA at a time, and your work matters. So thank you for doing what you do to improve the world's organizations. And with that, I'll leave you and look forward to the next time that we get to connect. Thank you, everyone.